Last week, we examined the 1915 Sinhala Muslim riots and the brutal use of martial law by the British to suppress what they believe is a civil uprising. But for years, in the airy hallways of Colombo's clubs and universities, an articulate group of Western-educated Ceylonese upper class are demanding constitutional reforms. They believe that they have an advantage the other freedom fighters do not. They think like Ceylonese but can act like the British. In their time spent at prestigious British universities, they have rubbed shoulders with nobility but have absorbed the cause of global revolutionaries who have infused them with hope for freedom. This group has now come to the edge of a new world brimming with the possibility of independence. And they are reaching for it. Many of Sri Lanka's freedom fighters are languishing in prison after a brutal crackdown by the British state. This vibrant group are in their 20s and 30s. Among them are prominent Buddhist scholars, lawyers, philanthropists, planters, journalists, Sri Lanka's first trade unionist, and, of course, a poet. Let us look at our cast of characters. Alexander Ekanayaka Gunasinghe was a squarely built man, born in Kandy in 1891. He started out as a journalist and formed a number of trade unions including the Young Lanka League. In the 1890s, the colonial government had introduced a poll tax on all adult males. All those who did not pay the tax had to work for 1 day each year on the roads. At Gunasinghe's urging, the Young Lanka League did not pay the tax and chose road work instead. He joined in with many others breaking stones and pounding asphalt. The tax was finally repealed in 1923. That same year, he would go on to lead a successful general strike of 25,000 railway workers in a 56-day agitation for better wages. Because of the worker support he brought, he was important to the independence movement. Next up, we have Arthur Dias, fondly known as Kosmama. Arthur was a planter by profession and strongly tied to the temperance movement. Whilst his father was a wealthy plantation owner and a franchiser of arak, Arthur shunned alcohol after seeing its devastating effects firsthand. He also had been sentenced to death in 1915 but was released after his mother paid a fine of 100,000 rupees, around 2.5 million rupees in today's money. Unlike most of his counterparts, he chose never to wear Western clothing and always preferred white national dress, even corresponding exclusively in Sinhalese. In 1918, he promoted the planting of 1 million jack trees, calling it the Grow More Jack campaign, posting jack seeds and seedlings to people across the island with instructional leaflets on plantation and care. He would later go on to be vital to Ceylon's education infrastructure, supporting his mother in the development of Vishaka Vidyalaya, a prominent girls' school in Colombo. Arthur brought seed funding to the temperance movement and was important for its image. The list goes on. Piyadasa Sirisena, a novelist and poet. Baron Jayathilaka, an Oxford-educated lawyer and Pali scholar who turned to school administration, and many, many others. But most poignantly, there are two sets of brothers whose lives will intertwine. They will in turn support, betray and oppose each other. They are the Sinhalese Sena Nayakas and the Tamil Ponnambalams. The dashing young Sena Nayaka brothers, Charles, Richard and Stephen, are from an affluent family in modern-day Meerigama, northeast of Colombo. The Ponnambalam boys, Arunachalam and Ramanathan, are aristocratic Tamils, educated in the finest schools in India. Together, they fight for the cause of freedom, but their lives will mirror the ethnic struggles that plagued Ceylon. Quickly, Don Stephen or DS, the youngest, least academic and most sporty of the three Sena Nayakas, proves his mettle as a clever politician and a fine commercial mind. He starts by supporting his older and more pious brother Richard in founding the Lanka Mahajana Sabha party in 1919, but it is DS who understands the need to be inclusive and agile in the fight for independence. Meanwhile, the colonial government realizes that jailing prominent Ceylonese without charge would just be bad politics and begin to release them. But they will forever be branded felons. One man is bristling at the thought. His name is James Pieris. Pearce already has several wins under his belt. Not only has he been the first non-European to be elected president of the Cambridge Union, he successfully led a campaign to abolish the paddy tax, the first instance that a tax was abolished in the recorded history of the island. James is a Christian, but has refused special treatment by the British. He has shunned a life in the civil service and has dedicated his life to advocacy and constitutional reform. Now in his 50s, seeing the treatment of brave younger men at the hands of Governor Chalmers, he hatches a plan. He will make a formal complaint. Two others who will join him are Ponnambalam Ramanathan and E.W. Pereira, formidably known as the Lion of Kotte. Despite a youthful phase of excess, Ponnambalam is the first Ceylonese to be appointed King's Counsel and has inherited his uncle's seat on the Legislative Council of Ceylon as an unofficial member representing Tamils. He is also really into constitutional reform. E.W. Pereira is a gifted legal mind and a courageous firebrand. They are both moved by James's campaign for a royal commission of inquiry to clear the names of the imprisoned. The three legal minds get together at E.W.'s home and begin drafting a secret petition to the Secretary of State for the Colonies in London. They will use their contacts in Britain to further their cause. The document will list the cruelties that Governor Chalmers has unleashed on the population and calls for a commission of inquiry by the Crown. The memorandum is complete. They must present it to the British Parliament. But before that, they need to find sponsors among British MPs. But before all that, they need to physically get it to London. The risks were plenty. Discovery of the document by the police would lead to a swift arrest and most likely execution. There were practical risks too. World War I is raging and Germany has laid plenty of ocean mines and laced the seas with enemy submarines. Travel to Britain is ill-advised. So naturally, the Lion of Kotte comes forward. Disguising himself as an academic seeking to do research at the British Museum, he boards a steamer passage. He has concealed the document which could lead to his arrest in a specially made shoe with a false sole. He is welcomed to Britain with open arms and meets with parliamentarians. The Lion of Kotte confronts them with detailed accounts of the 1915 riots, and they are ashamed, promising to sponsor his petition. He is later joined by Ponnambalam Ramanathan and Baron Jayathilaka. Together, they have success. Martial law on the island is withdrawn. A royal commission of inquiry is appointed to probe atrocities, and Governor Robert Chalmers is recalled to England. The 100 days of terror under the British come to an end. The battle is over, but the war has just begun. Through a legislative council, the state had granted Ceylonese race-based representation in governing the island. Over the years, the council was reformed several times and enlarged by introducing unofficial members and elected representatives until what started with 16 members increased to 49. The Legislative Council could elect 2 educated Ceylonese, and they were Sir Ponnambalam Arunachalam, brother of Ponnambalam Ramanathan, as well as James Pearce. Sir Ponnambalam is a knighted and respected Tamil leader who founded the Ceylon National Congress, along with his fellow educated colleagues, to represent the nationalist cause. Their goal was simple: install an elected national government for Ceylon, and they have 3 demands. The Congress called for an elected majority to control the legislature, control of the budget, and control of the executive branch of government, but notably not independence. In return, a watered-down compromise was made by the British. Representation would increase. The Ceylonese would have a tiny bit more power. They could look at the budget, but they would have no control over the executive branch. With a bit more power to the nationalists came inevitable fractures along ethnic lines. The Sinhalese called for territorial representation, which was representation based on geography instead of communal representation based on race, to ensure that they would remain a majority. But Tamil and other minorities would be shortchanged. What had started as a revival of national identity to gain independence was facing its toughest 3 tests. Test number 1. The 1921 Legislative Council election. Sir Ponnambalam, founder of the Congress, asked that the seat of Colombo town be allocated to him. He is opposed by the Sinhalese members of his party who say that it would be accepting the principle of communal representation. F.R. Senanayake calls him an egoist who had an exaggerated notion of his own importance and an extremist in politics, and calls for a campaign to elect more Sinhalese. Feeling betrayed, Sir Ponnambalam withdraws from the election with honour. No Tamil would be elected in the Western Province. In great disappointment, he walks out of the Ceylon National Congress. Test number 2. A leftist movement has captivated the workers on the island. Trade unionists are becoming more militant, and their demands far exceed what the Congress is asking for. Universal suffrage that is not limited along race, gender or religious lines, as well as independence. A.E. Gunasinghe is leading this movement from the front, and the governor of Ceylon worries about a communist uprising. Meanwhile, the final test. Anagarika Dharmapala is increasingly vocal. The British even suspect him to be agitating for the communists. In his travels abroad, international intelligence services have their spies keep an eye on him in case he meets with prominent Bolsheviks. But his invective at home against Christians and all other races was considered to be extreme for nationalist politics, and his ideology proves too much for the CNC. He leaves Sri Lanka and settles in India. But his cause will continue. The Congress is increasingly seen to be exclusive and Western. Will they carry Ceylon through the battle for independence? Catch us next week on Patta History as we explore Ceylon's road to independence and the women who paved the way. Make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell button to get notified of new episodes.